Another really important part of Model 2.0 is the ability to manage these imported objects. Now, I want to preface this by making you understand that when you import these objects and they have high polygon counts, which means that those objects I just brought in, that simple Kohler cabinet, had all those polygons for that sink and the polygons for the tap. That's a lot of information. And so these objects, they can be really high polygon counts for that. And so you need to be able to manage that. Otherwise, it will decrease the performance of your project. So one of the things that we did was we implemented a Polygon Reduction tool within ModelPort. And this allows us to basically change that polygon count from, say, 106,000 polygons to a smaller polygon count. So this is actually a chair. It's all it is a chair. And this chair has 106,314 polygons, and that's one chair. So just kind of keep that in context. I mean, Archicad objects shouldn't have more than a couple hundred polygons, and ideally no more than maybe 10 or 20,000, maybe 30,000 polygons at the most. So to have 106,000 polygons is enormous. So what we've done is we've added now a Polygon Reduction tool to ModelPort. The way it works, you select the object and you open up ModelPort. And then you go to to select the object at the top here. There's a little square right here, which is basically selecting the information about that object. And so by doing that, a little bit here, okay. By doing that, I can then select my Polygon Reduction tool. So right down here at the bottom, you'll see Poly Reduction. And when I select Poly Reduction, I can basically what's called decimate. I can actually reduce the decimation steps. And I can also see visually here that, well, there's been reduced or not. So in other words, by showing it green, showing it that it's actually okay. If I take it up to, say, a 3, okay, it's going to show even more reduction, down to 25.59. When it was actually showing red, that meant that it was actually a really high polygon count. Now, when I reduce this, it's actually going to now be reduced. And if I update my model, here's what's really nice. You'll see that it actually hasn't changed my graphic too much, a little bit there, not too bad. But it's reduced it significantly. If I look at it in 3D, even more so, is that you cannot tell the difference between the 2D, between the one that was 106,000 polygons versus the one that was now 20,000 polygons. They're pretty similar. And this is what's really, really important, because for many of you who have imported objects that have high polygon counts, you probably know that these high polygon counts create a lot of issues for your performance, particularly the more objects that you add. So being able to control these polygon counts now is a really important step to making these objects more useful for you and your projects. Now, another thing we did was to be able to allow you to control the file size of objects. So we've added in a new format in ModelPort called a ModelPort format. And you'll see that when you go to your save mode here, that you can now select the save mode to be in ModelPort, GDL, or GDL and ModelPort. Now, ModelPort's our new format that I'll talk about in a second. GDL stands for Geometric Description Language. That is actually what Graphisoft's objects are typically based on. And then you can combine these two as well. So you have these 3 options. Now, the reason why the ModelPort format is important is that we've actually been able to reduce up to 8 times the file size of these objects. So you'll see right now that object's 13 megabytes, okay? If I change this to the ModelPort format and I update that object, and I go back up to my menu and take a look at this in the Library Manager, we're going to see now that it reduced from 13 megabytes down to 2.1 megabytes. That is a huge reduction in the size of that object. So that's critical. I mean, if you think about the fact that you're importing in potentially, dozens of objects, maybe hundreds of objects into your project, and if those objects are, 10, 20 megabytes, and all of a sudden you can reduce them by up to 8 times smaller, That is very important. The model port format also allows you to re-edit the object. So if they're a Gdl format, you can bring it in and import it. But if you want to re-edit it, meaning the changing the materials directly in the model port editor, doing things like that I was showing you a minute ago, it needs to be in the model port format. That allows you to re-edit the object after it's been imported. And it also maintains that file reduction on computers without the model port license. So if you have model port, if you want to use model port on multiple computers, and maybe you have 10 computers and you have model port installed on 5 of the computers where they're licensed, you can still be able to benefit from that reduction of file size by simply having model port installed on your other computers, even if it's not licensed. As long as it's installed there, it will actually maintain that reduction in the file size. Now the Gdl format is just your standard format, right? If I go in and I select the Gdl option right here, it's going to allow me to import an object, and it's going to work just like any typical Gdl format would work. It's not going to reduce the file size, so it will be a lot larger, and it's not going to store that extra model port information if I want to re-edit that object after I've imported it. So, that is the disadvantage of it. But it is available there for those of you who might need it. We have made that available for that. And if you want to combine the two, the Gdl and the model port format, so that you don't have to worry about having model port installed on other computers where it's not licensed, then you can use the Gdl and the model port format. The reason why that's nice is it will not reduce the file size of the object, so it does create the larger file size. However, what it does allow you to do is to re-edit those objects on other computers, so that even if it's not in the model port format. So because I'm sorry, it is both Gdl and the model port format. So it just gives you more flexibility for that without having to worry about that. And if you are on other computers without Archicad, without model port installed on Archicad, then it will allow you to be able to view those objects and to be able to access those objects on those other computers without installing model port. So it's the most flexible in that you can send your model to somebody else. You have to worry about them having model port on their computers, etc. It's a more flexible format if you need that as well. So we've given you those 3 options, with model port, of course, being the most efficient, and the Gdl plus model port being the most open format, if you will, being able to use it anywhere you want. Now we've also, with this new version, we have implemented something called the model port browser. Now this is a really great new opportunity for you guys to be able to manage objects that you've imported to Archicad in terms of being able to visually navigate and find these objects. So one of the biggest problems that people have is they go out and they download a bunch of objects from various sources. And oftentimes they put them in folders, and maybe they downloaded them last week or last month or a year ago, and they're going to look at them and they don't know what they look like. And so they don't really want to have to go and import every one of those in there to be able to figure out what they are. So with the model port browser now, you can basically visually navigate through folders to see objects that you've downloaded from various sources. So if you bring the model port browser, I can see it, I can dock it, so that I can actually have it to the side here, and I can then scroll through various objects that I have. I can also go to different folders with different objects in it and being able to navigate through various sources here. So this is a really nice way for you to be able to kind of quickly be able to find objects visually. It's also drag and drop. So if I just want to drag and drop a object from the browser, I can do that. I'll just double click it and open it up and be able to edit it and then place it in my project. So again, it's a really quick way for you to be able to manage objects in terms of visually navigating and quickly finding them and then dragging and dropping them into your project. Okay, hopefully that's given you guys a good overview of some of the resources out there, how the differences between the built-in importer in Archicad versus the model port add-on importer and how those two differ and the pros and cons to both. I'm now going to talk a little bit about just if you are interested in demoing model port, getting started with model port, using this in your workflow, how you can start with that. So if you go to archvista.com/modelport, you can download a trial from there. Just navigate on the right-hand side, and you'll see the download trial option there. And you can then download a trial of model port and start to use that. The difference between the trial and the licensed version is the trial will have a watermark on it, and that watermark will be there until you purchase a copy and then change it from a demo to a licensed copy.